Thank you, Les Cahirlock, and thanks to Claire, Annette and Joan for the submissions. Now, the first question I have is for the USI. So in your submission, you said that you're gravely concerned about the inclusion of the value for money criteria and the risk it posed in pushing us further down the road of marketisation and commercialisation of the third level education. Now, I very much share your concerns, and we all want value for money, but it's an ideological myth that a market logic produces the best outcomes. At the end of the day, education is a public good, or should be a public good, and the type of public good is not always easy to measure. The bill talks about evidence of value for money without outlining the criteria and proving the value of critical thinking and discovery research. It's not as straightforward as it might appear on the face of it. So could you expand on your concerns on this issue? And are there concerns here about institutional independence and academic freedom? So maybe I'll just do that question first. If I could maybe have an answer on that from the USI.
USI firmly believes that access to education all throughout the academic journey, point of entry, success, progression, and also for students who have graduated continuing to the workforce, that it should be access and accessible for everyone. So in terms of the language used around value for money, it's concerning that it's equating the academic experience to one of the market. So naturally we would be concerned with the language around it, and I suppose trying to ensure that the way we view education and the narrative that we tell ourselves with having access to education, that it's a right at the end of the day, and that all people from all different walks of society have access to education. So the concern comes with the language used around it. But certainly our most important interest is ensuring that students, postgraduate students, international students, undergraduate students get the most and most meaningful, high quality educational experience possible. And we believe that that can be achieved through student representation, student advocacy, engagement and participation, and ensure that their success is the priority as well.
Yeah, thanks for that, Claire. I think it's enormously important, because I think we're losing that, particularly the ability to be able to critically analyse things, and that's what's needed for the workforce today, but also what's needed on your journey through education and life. I have a couple of questions, so maybe I'll go on to the others. Now, in the 180 pages of the bill, there's no reference to trade unions. And at a time when we've seen the rapid expansion of the precarious work in higher education sector, it's alarming that there seems to me to be an attempt to sideline trade unions. What's the current role of trade unions in higher education governance, and what would you like to see in the bill?
Well, I might come in there if that's okay, Annette. Yeah, well, currently staff are elected, so these are the internal representatives. The staff are elected by their own peers onto governing authority in our universities. So obviously there is a concern by reducing the number of internal participants on the governing authority that will affect the input from the staff themselves. But not only that, it will also create a mistrust of the governing authority, because right through the bill there is in several heads talking about the external membership must be higher than internal membership, and that a number of those external members will be ministerial appointments. So there's a sense, well, a very strong sense, and I suppose a huge concern from our own members, that they could see that the staff representation or staff voice will be reduced, and that the ministerial nominees will, I suppose, promote government policy rather than staff concerns for the needs of the university. But just getting back to the question around trade union involvement and, you know, where it's quoted or not quoted in this new bill, it's not actually, the trade union movement is not mentioned. And that's really disappointing because, as is correct, the students' union is mentioned. There's a number of tables right through the document. Head 17, Head 18, Head 37, they're just a couple of examples. And there might be a wording like, you know, appointed by the minister or representative bodies of staff and researchers in education, higher education providers. But it doesn't mention the trade union movement, which, you know, is quite extraordinary. And also, when we look at the Higher Education Authority and also the membership of that authority, again, we have a student representative, which is quite correct. But again, there's no trade union representative on that body. So that is of huge concern, not only to IFOT, but to the trade union movement itself.
Yeah, I certainly share your concern. Annette, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I might add to that. Yeah. First of all, there's a larger group representing members in the higher education sector, all under the ICTU umbrella. So they include my colleagues from SIPTU and Unite and Forza. So, you know, maybe there might be an opportunity at a later stage, you know, to invite ICTU and the relevant unions within the higher education sector, because certainly in the last while we've been working, you know, very closely together as a higher education group, not alone just on COVID-19 issues, but also on funding. And you may have got a report from ICTU about a year ago in terms of the funding of the sector, so I can resend it again to members of the committee. But all of my fellow trade unionists representing higher education, you know, we are all at one that there should be a representative of the trade union movement on the governing body of the HEA, and there isn't currently such representation, and there's no mention of it within the provisions of these heads of bill, and I think that has to be the case.
Ms. Dolan, apologies for interrupting, but I'm afraid we've just come to the end of the 6 minutes. So what I might do is, if it's all right, that you might put that answer together and perhaps send it to Deputy Conway-Walsh. Also, just to note that... I
do that, yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Just to note that ICTU, I think, declined to join the meeting today